All right, welcome back to Unicorn 2021. I hope most of you have gotten your lunch already and are excited to sort of share this presentation keynote session with us. I have with me Nakul. Nakul, you want to do a quick introduction about yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Nakul and I'm the Senior Global Lead for B2B e-commerce at Unilever. Yep.
Nice to have you, Nakul. And I'm Justin, and I'm reward manager for the region. A quick introduction about myself. I'm a Chinese male with short hair and I'm wearing a blue shirt. Nakul?
Yes, I'm a brown male and I'm wearing a yellow t-shirt.
All right. Very, very lovely to have you guys with us today. Today, we will just be running through a little bit about what we mean when we say celebrating a diverse and inclusive culture at Unilever. We will run you through our journey as Unilever and a little bit about what we call Enable at Unilever. And then we will then take your questions in Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the presentations, feel free to pop them into the chat as we run through the entire presentations. All right, Nakul, over to you for your self-introduction.
Brilliant. Thanks, Justin. And I should also remind everyone that, guys, for every question that you post, there are 50 points up for grabs. So please keep engaging with us. There's a lot that we also want to learn from you. All right, so about me. As you can see, I have one son and I'm married. I work with e-commerce and I'm really passionate about it. I am also a lifelong learner. So for the past 6 months, I have been learning Mandarin. And next week, I'm going to write my Mandarin exam. Would you believe it? And of course, diversity and inclusion is something which is very, very close to me. And I'll share a very quick story uh, about what has led me to where I am today. So I joined Unilever as a management trainee almost 13 years back, straight from my campus. And you know, like every other person who is in his 20s, I had it all planned out. Like I'm gonna become a manager and a leader in these many number of years. Of course, I'm gonna get married. We're gonna buy a home, and life's gonna be very wonderful. You know, like all you see everywhere around. But I think life had other plans. So 4 years into my role, I was diagnosed with a neurological condition. And this was a progressive disease. It's called multiple sclerosis. No one knew what causes it. And unfortunately, there is no permanent cure. And that put me in a state of disarray because nowhere had I planned for this particular scenario or a situation. Fortunately, I am blessed with a very good support system from my family, from my wife, and Unilever, of course, was also wonderfully empathetic to, to guide me really as I was navigating through that very tough phase. So at that point of time, I was doing front-end sales. And of course, it was difficult because this disease impacted my ability to walk, as I'm sure you can see right in that photograph. So, you know, my line manager at that point of time really encouraged me that, Nakul, why don't you steer your career towards digital, where mobility is not that much of a concern. Fortunately, I took his advice, and that turned out to be, uh, I think, the best decision that I ever took. And really, right now, I'm in a space where I have identified or articulated my passion to help others in their journey with hope and conviction. And that's why diversity and inclusion is something which is really, really close to me. And that's also something that we live and breathe at Unilever. Yeah. And now, Justin, why don't you share something about us, about your Unilever journey?
Sure. Thank you so much, Nakul. And I think I echo this on behalf of the team essentially when I say that you have been a huge inspiration, I think, to myself, and not from any perspective, right? But just more from the perspective of your commitment to diversity and inclusion. And I think we will hear a lot about that later on. A quick
Thanks, man.
introduction about myself. So I'm Justin. I started my journey with Unilever all the way back in 2016 as an intern, and I think was the batch 5 of the interns in the Unilever Leadership Internship Program, so the ULIP Summer Internship Program, as you can see from the photo in the top left. And thereafter, I joined Unilever as a management trainee. And went on for 3 good years as a HR trainee in many different roles. And today I sit here today to share with you as part of my role as a reward manager, but also leading the ED&I agenda together with Nakul within the Singapore hub itself. So I think it's a privilege to be working on this agenda, especially in a times when I think this is super important. And I'm not sure if you guys actually saw the Paralympic Games recently, but super happy in terms of, I think, the swimming results. For me personally, at least, when I was following the Paralympic Games, Pinsiu, as SMU alumni, same as myself, I think very, very proud of her achievements in there. And as I think many, many new and upcoming athletes that will actually be doing really, really well in the games. Yeah. All right. Enough of the introductions for now. Maybe what I would do is, in order to set some context about diversity and inclusion in Unilever, I think first let me bring you through what it means for Unilever to really talk about ED&I. Okay, so as you would probably already know, Unilever is one of the world's largest consumer goods company, right? And you probably would have heard this many times. Our purpose is to make sustainable living commonplace, right? And because we have held this belief for a really, really long time, dating all the way back, hinting to our founder, William Lever, who launched the Sunlight soap in UK previously to tackle infectious diseases. But this thought and this mentality has been with us ever since, right? In all the work that we do around the world, whether it's producing products or the way we treat people. Yeah. Just a little note, around what Unilever is and our market capital. We have 58% of our turnover in emerging markets. So there's a lot of work for us to help the world, essentially, in over 190 countries, right? And over 2.5 billion people use our products daily. So that's something that we, as Unilever, have the scale to help make a difference in the world, right? With our 400 brands, and of which 14 of which are, in the top 50 consumer brands in the world itself. I don't have to repeat this again. I think you would have seen this across the world. You would know some of our most popular brands: Magnum, Lifebuoy, Lipton, Seventh Generation, so on and so forth. We do have a lot of the world's favorite brand. But what I wanted to bring you through today is actually our Unilever Compass. Don't be bothered by the many details on the slide itself. I will run you through each and every single detail. I think that what I want to share with you and what's important, because you will see that there's a few different parts to the compass. First of all, if I bring your attention to this. So at the heart of our compass, our strategy is our purpose, right? Which I talked about earlier, is to make sustainable living commonplace. Alongside with it, is our vision on how we can be the world's leader in sustainable business and demonstrate that how our purpose-led future-fit business model actually derives better results. So it's based on 3 main fundamental beliefs, right? And that is brands with purpose grow, companies with purpose last, and the last, which I hold dearest to my heart, people with purpose thrive. So it's guided by these beliefs that you will hear how a lot of our actions are being taught and how our business strategy, as well as the way we think about how we want to do good in the world today. So the second portion really is around our multi-stakeholder model. While we are accountable to our shareholders, I think it's more than just the shareholders, right? It is our employees within here itself, and also our customers, our suppliers, our consumers, and of course, more importantly, the planet, the society, and the shareholders as well, right? How can we not neglect our planet, society, in the way of doing while we're doing business, essentially. So if you look in the wordy details of our compass, right, you would see this portion here, which is all our strategic actions, but more importantly, calling your attention to the fifth one here, right, which is how do we build an organization and a growth culture that is purpose-led and future fit. So there's three different fundamental areas that we want to sort of do it through, right? First is, of course, unlocking capacity through our digital transformation. But the main portion here today that we talk about is really how do we be a beacon of light, right, in the diversity and inclusion, and as well as leading through our values. Yeah. So if I just toggle to the next slide, you see here it's our actions that we hope to achieve as part of our ED&I agenda globally, right? And to sort of give you a very much a blanket picture, it's three different things, right? Equity, diversity, and inclusion. How do we raise the living standards? And of course, how do we embed what the future of work means for Unilever? So we have had a long-standing history of driving social change, right? From improving health and well-being of more than 1 billion people under our sustainable living plan. But we are more getting aware that there's a few different areas that we need to put our focus on. Number one is we want to try to raise living standards, not just for the people who work with Unilever, but with the suppliers and the vendors who work with us. We want to make an influence with our skill in that sense, but also to capture and eliminate, any non-inclusive behavior and culture by removing all sorts of biases and discrimination in our workplace. And also, I think you would hear later a little bit more from Nakul in this space, but we are aiming to have 5% of our workforce made up with people with disability by 2025. And beyond that, not just a commitment of hiring these employees, but also, making sure that the way that we spend our money as a large organization, right, is to the diverse businesses. So we want to do it with businesses that employ persons with disability. We want to do it with people that represent minority minority groups as well, but also in our advertising, in what we put out to the world today, to increase the representation of all of these groups. So this is our goals and our strategy that we have put in place from now all the way to 2025, right, of our goals. So you would see how we are taking many steps to make sure that we achieve this goal moving forward. Yeah, I will not delve into too much detail here today. So if you want to find out more information with regards to this, you can of course head over to our website where you can find the compass and where we put our commitments publicly on planet and society, right? And I think now is as good as time after you have the context to sort of have Nakul. I'll hand over the time to you to share a little bit more about our internal group Enable at Unilever.
Unmute. Brilliant. Thanks, Justin. And I can see there are lots of interesting questions coming in the Q&A chat, and guys will get around to it. But thank you. Please let the questions pour in. All right. So Enable at Unilever. Like Justin mentioned, one of the bold commitments that we as Unilever made towards end of 2019 was to become #1 employer of choice for people with disabilities by 2025. And we want 5% of Unilever's workforce to comprise from people with disabilities. Now it's a bold ambition. I think Unilever is also one of the first organizations who were able to make that commitment up front. And as we go about operationalizing that, I think one of the very important points to consider is that 70% of disabilities are actually not apparent. So you cannot sense and see that someone has a disability, because a lot of disabilities are also acquired later in the stage and people are not born with it. And we really wanted to help out those people, maybe who are silently fighting those battles. And in order for us to do that, we launched Unilever's first global employee support group called Enable, with the vision to make people with disabilities thrive. So this is a global group that we have in Unilever. Anyone at all, it's an open group, so anyone sitting out of anywhere can just come and join. It's a safe space and be a part of this group. There are three values that we have called out from our network charter. The first one is to not really differentiate between disabilities, to celebrate and value the differences that people have, and also directionally, what Unilever wants to do is to enable people to bring their authentic selves to work. So that's what we did with Global Enable Framework. And I'm very happy to share with you that it's a thriving community within Unilever. Now we have more than 300 members, active members, spanning across 36 countries and 18 functions who are a part of this community. Uh, and again, what we do in this community is everyone learns from shared experiences. There are 5 streams also where we have organized ourselves to take focused actions, and the streams run from accessibility to driving visibility and engagement. That why it is important for us to build an inclusive workplace, and how do we go about doing that. There's a lot that's also happening in policy and in training, which is both for people with disabilities who are currently in the workforce, and also for other people who really don't have disabilities, but let's say who are hiring managers, who are HR professionals, who are site managers. How do they also appreciate what are the things that are important for people with disabilities, and then how do they foster a workplace environment where people with disabilities thrive. There's a lot that's also happening around talent development. So yes, we really want you to come and join us in our journey. And then what has also happened, which was really cool, is from this global network, there have been a lot of offshoots and a lot of local chapters have emerged. And on that, I would also like to share with you what we have done and landed here in Singapore for Enable. So for Unilever Singapore, we again have a bold ambition. We want Unilever Singapore to be the #1 employer of choice for people with disabilities. And how do we go about doing that? There's just so much that can be done, and there's so much that needs to be done. And I think just for us to focus our energy, our thoughts, and give a broader structure, we have put this framework, what you see on your screen right now. So there are 3 streams again where we have all organized ourselves. First of all, you should know that the work that is being done over here is purely on voluntary basis. We have a lot of colleagues within Unilever Singapore who have signed up for these initiatives, and we sort of run like a very cool, project team. We meet once a month. We update our leadership on what we have doing and what we need to do, and we tread along. So it's a very unconventional, group of passionate people who are working for these 3 specific streams. And the 3 streams that we are working on, we have borrowed this from the global framework. The first one is on talent and organization. As a Unilever, we want our senior leaders to make a commitment that diversity and inclusion is important, and we want everyone, to really take a bold ambition that how will this land effectively in their teams and their market. The second one is all about accessible experiences. So, we at Unilever, we have a very flexible and a very, I would say, empathetic workplace policy, very suited to the needs of our employees and, of course, everyone that works with Unilever. But again, the point is for us to constantly learn, constantly evolve, and really, again, foster an environment where people who work in Unilever and with Unilever can thrive. And the third part is around engagement. That internally, how do we drive up or dial up this visibility of support? And also externally, how do we foster partnerships with a lot of NGOs? If you guys would be interested, something like SPD, who has been helping people with disabilities in Singapore since I think the mid 1960s. We work very closely also with SG Enable. They share with us a lot of good practices on what other organizations are doing, and that again helps us to sort of steer the direction where we need to go. So the engagement part is also very, very, I think it's very, very important for us. And all of these three streams are founded on the foundation that at a very basic level, I think we want everyone to feel safe when it comes to discussing the topic of disability at workplace. So there are a lot of training resources that we have put together on how do you really approach if you want to help someone who has a disability. How do you approach them? What's the right language to be used? So that's something that we have already put in place. Like I said, this entire network is run by a group of passionate volunteers who are doing this in addition to their day job. So it's wonderful, to really see that energy. And of course, our leadership is fully committed to this. So that always helps, right? Because once when the leadership is committed and aligned, we can just tread along, and it's also pretty cool to see that we are told that, guys, this is important from the leadership, and you guys do what you want to do, and don't worry, you have our backing and full support. So it's very empowering to get that sense of support from senior leaders, and again, that's something that has helped us along the way. All right. Now, not to again, it's a busy slide, but just to show you, this is not a one-time activity. What we are thinking and what we do, there is a proper dedicated roadmap that we have put for the full year. There is a cadence, there is a monthly rhythm that we meet, we discuss, we charter our way together, and we also celebrate our, some small victories. And to that point, I would also want to share with you something regarding the enabling mark. Now, as we were landing this, inclusive framework in Singapore, for Unilever, I think one of the good things also is that Unilever being a very close-knit multinational corporation or an organization, we were able to borrow and gather some really good learnings from certain markets where the social infrastructure around disability is far more evolved. So I'm talking about countries like UK, Germany, Canada, US, where there are very evolved societal as well as legal norms when it comes to inclusion for people with disabilities. And that was really helpful for us because that gave us like a guiding path that where do we want to get at. So we borrowed that and we started working. But I think what was also very important for us to really realize and benchmark that, okay, but here in Singapore, how is Unilever doing versus, let's say, some of the other organizations who would be doing some spectacular work? And that is where SG Enable and Enabling Mark came in very handy. So Enabling Mark is actually a national level accreditation framework that is run by SG Enable. They assess all the organizations in a very, very thorough manner, and then they certify whether the organization really, passes or crosses specific expectations or a bar. And I am very happy to share with you, and this is hot off the press. This was shared with us just last Friday that Unilever is actually one of the organizations in Singapore that has received an enabling mark certification. And I think that shows that what we are doing over here is is the best one of the best practices that is happening in Singapore. Of course, it's a journey, and we have just started on this. It gives us a lot of confidence. It also gives us some very, very rich inputs on where we need to improve. And we are considering all of that as we go along in 2021 and also what we plan for 2022. And we would really like you to join us and come along on this journey. Great. Okay, so before we go to the Q&A, I just wanted to share one very quick sort of a cheat sheet with you. So one of the questions, I guess, that was raised in Q&A by Emilia, if I'm not wrong, was okay, what can I do if I want to make a positive mark in the space of equity, diversity, and inclusion? So what I can share with you is I think all of us can do something really, really small from today that will really help us in making a more inclusive framework. So I'm sharing some 3 very simple tips with you guys. There are a lot more, but like I said, these are something that you can do literally. You can do it starting today. So the first one is selecting the type of font that you want to use. Now, some of you may know it, but I think for everyone, to me, honestly, this was a really cool thing to know. Is when you are selecting the font, when you want to write your paper or in your presentations or in your email communication, fonts from the font family sans serif are actually far more inclusive. And by that, what I mean is actually serif means curls. So sans serif is without the curls. And for people who have dyslexia, actually it's very difficult for them to, read those very curvy fonts, even, something like a Times New Roman. So although a lot of us have a love-hate relationship with fonts like Calibri, etc., they are far more inclusive. So I would really encourage you to use, and there are so many fonts in sans serif family, but please use a font from the sans serif family because yeah, it's just easier for people to read. The next one is, I'm pretty sure for you guys, you would have a lot of engagements, a lot of online or virtual parties. A Mentimeter is actually a pretty cool and accessible tool if you want to engage, your audiences, your friends, or even when you are, giving out a presentation. So yes, Kahoot is not very inclusive for everyone. Mentimeter is actually better. That's the next one. The third one is, and this again, something that you can do from here and now. Some people, some of us, myself included, we have bouts of anxiety, and I think to consider the challenges for some of us and some of the people that they face, I think it's just a courteous practice and a manner to share pre-reads before a meeting. It's also very important, let's say if you have a colleague or someone with whom you'll be working who use assisted device, it's really helpful for them if you share pre-reads before a meeting, because then they can go through it before the meeting and really come and enter with their viewpoints articulated. So again, three simple tips if you want to make a difference here and now in the space of diversity and inclusion. All right. With that, Justin, I think we should head to the Q&A area. There are some really good questions out there.
Exactly, Knuckle. Thank you so much for sharing. I hope that the little three tips that Knuckle has shared has answered your question. And I think we've got another one from YN who also asked very similar questions on how can fellow employees help to improve diversity and inclusivity at the workplace. So hopefully those three tips have given you a little kickstart in your journey towards an ED&I. There is one question that I think really like. Just read it out loud first. So since HireView is used to screen the UFLP applicants, how does Unilever ensure that AI is not biased against the candidates, especially oppressed communities, including women, people with disabilities or Black people? I love the question personally, and because I love the fact that we are all using AI now, and AI is super important. I think what I have to share on this is that AI is guiding our recruiters on the overall standing and of the candidates, right? And not based on the way that they look or sound, but rather how they are answering the question and the content behind their answer. So in Unilever Singapore, right, we are very committed to reviewing all of the higher view submissions to ensure that no candidates are left behind, right? Which is why it does take us some time to reach out to the shortlisted candidates. So please bear with us if you haven't heard back from us, but we will eventually get back to you should you be shortlisted. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I believe it was Sophia who asked that question. Nakul, I do have one question that I will pose to you. It's by Cindy, and she asked, how does Unilever ensure diversity and inclusivity within the company?
How does Unilever ensure diversity and inclusivity within the company? So, no, it's a good one. And Cindy, what I can share is that first of all, you know, we have this thing in Unilever, and of course it transcends everywhere, that you treasure what you measure. So we do keep an assessment on really how diverse our workplace and our workforces are. The direction where again we want to be is in every market and everywhere that we operate, we want our workforce to mirror the communities that we serve. So that becomes the guiding star. And then of course we keep a track on where we are, where we want to be, and then there is a proper path and a proper structure that is put in place, that how will we get there. Now it's definitely, that's not something that we can or anyone can do overnight. It is a complicated problem, but I think there are a couple of things that give me a lot of assurance that we in Unilever have the right strategy and the right mindset to get there. And the reason why I say that is that Unilever does not shy away from having these tough conversations. It's very interesting. So every fortnight we have a town hall where our CEO actually speaks to all the 150,000 people in the company. This town hall started, I think, as we just entered the pandemic. The leadership realized that, everyone is scared. Everyone doesn't really have a very good idea on what tomorrow will be like. And then just having our CEO appear in front of us every single week was, I think, one of the things that I really appreciated. And we have been continuing with that practice. And in those sessions, Alan Job, who's our CEO, and honestly, if I would really encourage you to go check his Twitter feed, check what he posts on LinkedIn. He's not the one who shies away from acknowledging that there are so many problems that we need to fix. So I think having an open conversation really helps, and that is what we have been having at Unilever. The second one is, which I also mentioned, that we have the leadership support on how do we figure out how to solve some of these problems. And then we have their support in order to say, all right, guys, if you believe that's the right way to go about it, you go and do it. So just, this example of enabling mark that I shared, honestly, this is something that Justin and, our external comms director, they picked it up and they just ran with it. And the sense from the leadership was, okay, guys, this is the right way to do it. We may receive it, we may not receive the certificate, but it's the right thing to do. So go and figure it out. And yeah, we got it, which was pretty cool. So open conversations, having the leadership support, and then also having the right systems and processes, I think, which helps us in quantifying that what is the result of some of the actions that we are taking. Because yeah, at the end of it, we can talk all about we want diversity and inclusions, but if our teams are not diverse enough, and if that data is not present, then it's just talk. Then we are not walking the walk, so as to say. So yeah, those are some of the things that we are doing, which gives me hope and assurance that yeah, we are doing something good for the society.
Perfect, Nakul. Perfect. And I think I resonate very much with you on that point where you talked about us being honest and open. And even if we're not the best, and I can't openly say that we are the best, right? At ED and I, we are all on a learning journey. And
Very true.
we must know where we stand, including maybe where we may not be doing as well as others, and learning from others to only improve in this journey. Yeah. I see another question in here that asks that we mentioned that Unilever tries to engage with businesses that support and integrate diversity. How do we identify such businesses, right? Are there sort of any factors that we look at? And just curious as to how it works. So, Saurabh, thanks for the question. And of course, if you are interested to see how this is done, I would highly encourage you to join us in the journey of making it happen. But beyond that, I think we work with the businesses, and it's not a transactional relationship that Unilever has with the different business partners, the suppliers that we have, right? It is truly a partnership that we have in place with them. Similarly to how we implemented the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan, we worked with them to make carbon emissions, go down, be more green to the environment, and all in all, it's a very similar logic as to how we plan to make it happen with them, as engaging with them to sort of be more inclusive and be more diverse in the way that they do their businesses. So it's truly a partnership and a working model. And because we rely on them and they will rely on us, it's essentially such an integrated relationship with us and our suppliers that we just want to see and do better and do good for the world today. I hope that sort of gives you a context in terms of how we create better and identify more businesses that do good as well and work with them. Yeah. There's another question, Nakul, that I just wanted to pop in to you that
Mhm.
that came from, let me see, who is this? Joy. So Joy, thanks for the question. It says, "Hi, Nakul and Justin. Thanks for sharing your story. Really inspiring to learn how you overcame your personal challenges. Could you share more on the partnerships and trainings with the NGOs? And would it be how allies could better support peers?"
Great question. Thanks, Joy, for asking that. So yes, this group that I just spoke about, Enable. This is for people with disabilities and allies. So what are the kind of partnerships that we have? Yes, so Joy, there are there are some certain agencies, both in Singapore as well as globally, that we are in touch with who are doing some really, really pioneering work in this space. As you can imagine, there's, like I said, there's just so much that can be done and should be done, and that's why it becomes very important to sort of prioritize or sort of put a framework that what are those things that can be done, let's say starting today. What are those things that can be done at a later stage, which will have the which will have a maximum impact. So to share with you, there are certain global partners that we work with, like Business Disability Forum. I would encourage everyone to go and check them out. Some really, really cool stuff. There's an organization by the name of Purple Space. Interestingly, Purple Space is the NGO that really popularized or commercialized, using the color purple and celebrating 4th of December as International Day for People with Disabilities. So we really we work very closely with these NGOs. We dip into their network, and there's a lot, like Justin shared. There's a lot that we have picked up from what other organizations, let's say, like Microsoft, like SAP, what these guys are doing. Some really, really pioneering stuff. Closer to home, we work very closely with the SPD. There's a lot that we have been working with them over the past, I think, more than 1 year or so. Again, it's just learning certain nuances around what the landscape and what are some of the challenges again are from a Singapore uh, market perspective. SG Enable is another one with whom we are very closely linked, very closely tied up. We also discuss a lot with the EDB, Singapore EDB, on what we can do more and how Unilever can actually tie hands with some of the other organizations to really make an impactful to do something impactful around creating inclusive workspaces. So yeah, uh, there's a mix of global as well as local partners with whom we work in just driving this day in and day out.
Very nice, Nakul. I think we're closing in on the end of the 45-minute session. Nakul, do you have one last tip that you want to share with the folks in terms of how can they get started on this journey? Just one 5 seconds, 10
Yes,
seconds tip. Yes.
sure. So I think, guys, one of the really good resource for you to get started is check United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There's a wealth of resources and opportunities out there. Please go check them out. I can also share with you that a lot of what we do in Unilever is also very well aligned with United Nations Sustainable Goal. So get started over there. But again, if you want to work for a business that truly lives and breathes purpose, come and join us. We would love to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nakul. If I have one tip to share myself, I would say, don't keep the information to yourself, right? This is not a time to be selfish. It's time to share and learn from each other, right? And at this point in time, I think we've come to the end of the session. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all of you for joining us. And just to give a shout out, and what else is on the platform? There's quite a few other brand booths and brand engagement booths that you can play around. There's a photo booth as well, I believe. But otherwise, we will see you in the next 15 minutes. And the next talk will really be on Sunlight, right? You've heard us talk about Sunlight being one of the founding brands of Unilever. So come join us to hear more about Sunlight in the next 15 minutes. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. And now we'll say bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.